This is the Picard podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 3, 17 Seconds.
You said trust no one. Why?
We were on a supply run to Sarnia Prime, and Jack was jumped by Fenris Rangers. Then Klingons boarded us a day later. They were trying to take him. Then went to Starfleet, and still they came for him. Everywhere we go, someone turns on us. You are the only one I can trust.
Why do they want Jack?
I don't think it has anything to do with him. I think it somehow has something to do with you.
I know nothing about this Vatic.
No, neither do we, but that's no bounty hunter ship. That's a warship with Jean-Luc Picard-sized enemies behind it.
Welcome back, fellow Trekkies. Yes, this is the Picard podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're looking at Season 3, Episode 3 of Star Trek Picard. 17 seconds, which is not how long this podcast will take.
It'd be over already if that was the case.
Exactly. But I am one of your trekking hosts, John.
And I'm your other host, Derek. Chris is unable to join us for this episode of Picard, but that's okay. He'll be back next time.
Yes.
I forgot to mention on our last podcast, John, because we were doing so many podcasts, I completely forgot to mention it was our 750th podcast for TV Podcast Industries.
Woo!
That's a big number. We should celebrate the big numbers.
Yes.
9 years, 750 podcasts, brand new website, just launched a couple of weeks ago.
Yes,
well.
a new back end, so to speak, at
yes.
Misses.
Absolutely. And I want to say a huge thank you to all of our wonderful patrons who've enabled us to get the new website. And a huge thank you to all those who reached out to me to tell me that one of our feeds wasn't working.
Yes.
It is now fixed. Everybody should now have access to the 6 episodes we've released since I changed over the website. So if it's not working, please email us. Just email me to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com and I'll do some back-end magic and fix it.
Well, that's it. With such a large overhaul, certainly at the back end, then there were a few technological issues. Dare I say it? The sensors were down,
Yes.
being interfered with by the nebula.
Yes.
That was the new back end. So, yes. But hopefully it didn't impact our fellow listeners and fellow Trekkies in listening to the podcast.
Hope
But
not.
if there have been any issues, just research again, because you can get it on, I guess traditionally was the RSS feed,
Yeah.
and also now with the new feed.
Yeah, exactly.
Double TV Podcast Industries.
Yes, of course, we're talking to people that may not be able to hear the podcast, so there's no point.
That is true.
Telling them how to subscribe. If you can hear the podcast, you're subscribed, hopefully.
I'm just shouting into a nebula, or should I say an anomaly?
Ah, yes.
Or should I say an anomaly?
What did you say?
It just sounded weird when I said it the first time.
Okay, good stuff.
An anomaly is
anomaly.
one of those words that I need to enunciate with.
Yes, I get you.
But before we get into our spoiler-filled discussion of episode 3, 17 seconds, just a quick reminder on our Picard 10 Forward pub quiz. Question 3 will be up later in the episode. Don't forget to email your 10 answers into us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com for a chance to get your hands on some Picard goodies, which may or may not involve wine.
Well, yeah, it has in the past. Yes, final time to do that as well. Final season, final Picard podcast pub quiz.
Yes. Boldly go to the 10 forward pub quiz questions over on tvpodcastindustries.com. Well,
Exactly.
if you've missed any, you can find them out there on our pub quiz section.
Exactly.
But Derek, who gave us what, where, when, how, why, and for what reason?
Well, this episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes, number one himself,
Sweet.
Captain Riker. And directed pretty much at least one episode of every Star Trek show, I think, since
Cool.
Next Generation.
Yeah, love him.
Yeah, he's always good, isn't he?
Superb.
Yeah. The episode was written by Jane Maggs and Cindy Apple. Jane wrote 3 episodes of season 2, and she's written episode 7 for this season. And Cindy also wrote 3 other episodes of season 2, and she's written episode 5 of this season. So as we said, this final season bring all the family together and also the writing team.
Yeah, great stuff.
John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Star Trek Picard season 3, episode 3, 17 seconds?
Sure. Despite huge interference with the sensors of both ships, the Shrike manages to pursue the Titan through the nebula, attacking the Titan and inflicting significant damage to the warp drive and injuring Captain Shaw, who transfers command to Will Riker. After learning that Beverly Crusher had withheld her son's existence from Jean-Luc Picard to keep Jack safe from danger by association, Picard is disappointed and angry about being excluded from the biggest choice of his life. His mood seeps into his actions and behaviour towards his colleagues, as Riker refuses to take his advice to lure the Shrike into a trap. Instead, Riker commands the Titan out of the nebula, but as the Titan attempts to escape, the Shrike uses its portal weapon to keep the Titan in range of its weaponry. Meanwhile, Jack Crusher surmises that Vadic has other means to track the Titan than her sensor array, and enlists 7 of 9 to investigate. They find that a gas pipe has been sabotaged and is venting toxic gases into space for the Shrike to track. As 7 of 9 goes to repair the damage, Jack is attacked by an ensign who leaves him exposed to the toxic gas. 7 manages to get Jack to the sickbay just in time, and as he recovers, it is revealed that the Starfleet ensign is a member of the Changelings that can take on other species' forms. Still at large, the ensign damages the warp capabilities of the Titan. Stranded, Riker now adopts Picard's tactics, but it's too late, as Vadic orders her crew to generate portals to rapidly move the Titan and its torpedoes around, confounding its crew. As the Titan's own torpedoes hit the ship and disable it, the Shrike leaves the nebula. As the Titan sinks deeper and deeper into the nebula, pulled in by a gravity well. Meanwhile, Raffi finds herself aboard La Sirena, with Worf briefing her on their new target, a human called Titus Ricker, whom they capture. During the interrogation, they discover him to be another changeling from a faction conspiring for revenge against the Federation for their species' surrender during the Dominion War. They also discover that the portal technology stolen from the Daystrom Institute covered up a more meaningful and dangerous theft from the Institute.
Ooh, changelings everywhere.
Oh, great. Loved it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a
What
cool
a
idea.
great thing to have. A shapeshifter. Odo,
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
It's a shame that he's not around to be able to come back for that little cameo.
Yeah.
Or at least I think here, they got, at least I hope here there was the reference to Odo by Worf, in terms of that trusted ally.
Yes, a great reference to Odo, a person that Worf would trust above all others, played, of course, by René Bourgeois, who passed away in 2019, sadly.
Yes, really enjoyed Odo in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, great.
Of course,
character.
Worf being there, as well as Chief O'Brien was on Deep Space Nine as well.
He was.
And
Julian Bashir.
yeah,
and
great stuff.
Great cast.
Yeah.
And I love that they're incorporating the elements of DS9 really into the show, because the Changelings were one of the major antagonists throughout that show.
I really do hope we get a few Deep Space Nine cameos, actually.
And deep cuts, like there are in this episode.
Yes.
Yes.
But let us get into our discussion of Star Trek Season 3, Episode 3, 17 Seconds. I keep thinking of the Name of Cherry song, actually.
7 seconds.
With this, yeah. But it's 7.
It is,
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So how odd is that?
Yeah.
But anyway, enough of my ramblings to our fellow Trekkies.
Let's get on with our other type of ramblings that are focused on the show.
Let's start with our small moment about this episode.
Make it so, number one.
So yeah, what's your small moment? What's your little quote that you enjoyed from the episode?
I've kind of got 2, really.
Of course you do. Chris isn't here. You can take his one.
Exactly. I absolutely loved it as Riker is given command by Captain Shaw of the Titan after his injury, which ultimately turned out to be much more severe than what I thought. I thought it was just kind of a really bad fracture.
Yeah.
But internal bleeding, which not even technology of that time can pick up. How interesting.
Yeah.
Never believe a sensor.
But that's why you need a wonderful doctor like Dr. Beverly Crusher, you see?
Never forget first principles. Exactly.
Yes, yes.
And, of course, Will Riker is given command of the Titan, back in charge of his old ship. I love that he sort of gestures to the seat next to him for Admiral Picard, and I like the fact that Picard just turns around and kind of slyly says, "Perhaps it's about time you called me number one."
Love it.
Love it.
Yes.
Great
yes,
stuff,
absolutely.
indeed. I love that kind of chit-chat between these two.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, they're great. They're great together. Absolutely. And you said you had another one?
I do.
So, Chris, what's his other one?
Well, I guess it ultimately forms the basis of the title of the episode. But I loved both Riker and Jean-Luc in a time before toasting to Riker's new son and him becoming a father. And here we not only get the reference to 17 seconds in the turbo lift as Will Riker is having to head down to sickbay aboard the Titan because of complications, but also that's then repeated with Jean-Luc having to go down to the sickbay after Jack Crusher has come into sickbay unconscious from being exposed to the toxic gases from the sabotage pipes. So I like that. I think the other side of it, though, and mainly the quote, is I loved having Deanna Troi on here, effectively giving out to Riker, saying, "Are you smoking cigars and drinking whiskey? Bring some of that whiskey back. I'm going to need it." You know, he's been vomiting all over engineering. She's kind of struggling with the newborn baby. Yeah. So I really like this moment with both Riker and Picard in the bar, just, catching up and celebrating. But then Deanna Troi popping on the screen to effectively give out and say, look, Dad, get back here now and give me a hand.
Why are you allowed to go out and drink whiskey and have cigars when I haven't washed my hair in 3 days, basically?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really like that.
So really good.
Yeah. I hope we're going to see more of Deanna Troi this season. We have seen her before, of course, in Picard, but I hope we're going to see her aboard the Titan at some point, potentially.
Yeah, I hope
cool.
so.
That'd be kind of cool.
Good stuff. Derek, what is your small moment?
There are loads of little moments in the episode. I'm going to take one other one from Shaw. I just love Shaw's reaction to when he gets the readings in from the nebula. It's where Lieutenant Tavine is calling out that there's an energy surge from the nebula. Electrical and biological readings are coming from it. And Shaw goes, "Well, that's fun. Does anyone else want to throw more weird shit at me?" I think he's feeling very put upon about how crazy this adventure among the most boring ships in Starfleet, as he called it before. Everything just runs to schedule under his watch. But these two guys, Riker and Picard, have come aboard and destroyed his entire life, effectively. I love that reaction. So, once again, great line from Shaw. One other one that I really, really like is Riker's interaction with Jack when Jack's pacing outside and the conversations going on, which I'll talk about, between Beverly and Picard. Absolutely love when Jack turns around to Riker and calls him Riker, and he goes, "You can call me Captain." Even though they've had this kind of heart-to-heart about him, being witness to this experiment being cooked up for 20
I
years, as
loved
Riker
it.
says.
Yeah, really good.
Love that. They're having that conversation man to man, and then suddenly it's, you can call me Captain.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good.
Good
Really good
stuff. Let us get on to our medium moment of the episode.
Implement the Omega Directive immediately.
All right, John, what's your medium-sized moment from the episode? Your scene that you enjoyed?
For me, it's the big falling out, the argument between Picard and Riker here. I mean, I love all the loving stuff that they do and the nods to the past, and I love seeing their on-screen friendship. And I think it's made more by just the knowledge that they also have this, really good off-screen friendship as well from their time doing Next Generation.
Absolutely.
Like it's really great.
It is, isn't it? And what did you think of the de-aging scene in this episode? De-aging is something that we know very well from the MCU stuff that we do, all the Marvel shows that we do. In this episode, you mentioned about, obviously, the scene that was broken into by Deanna Troi, but that was a de-age scene that's supposed to be just after the last Star Trek movie, I think. It's about 20 years or so beforehand.
I thought it looked good. Yeah. I mean, I'm not looking at it as intricately to spot any issues. I mean, if it was just kind of like a blurry fuzzball atop the shoulders rather than an actual face and head, well then, yes, I would notice it. But I mean, to me, within the lighting and how it's done, it all looks really spot on to me. So I thought it was good.
I kind of wish those special effects guys would walk around and de-age me everywhere I go, to be honest. A lot less wrinkles.
Well, I certainly put on the smoothing effect on Zoom for sure.
Yes, of course.
Yes, smooth and supple. It looks on Zoom, and then I'm like the portrait of Dorian Gray upstairs in the loft.
Very good, very good.
Or the attic. But yes, but getting back to my medium moment. All the lovey-dovey stuff, is great and so on, but it just simply can't be that all the time. And I love that they took this moment here. Picard is effectively annoyed, despondent, upset over his conversation about Jack that he's just had with Beverly. But I love the way how it just seeps in. You can see him kind of in his own thoughts, moping. And this builds through the episode with him, in a sense, despite him having just said, it's about time you called me number one, almost accepting he is the commander, the number one to Riker's captain. It's almost like he's so het up, he's so wound up that he now realized, well, I'm the admiral. You're just a captain. Yeah. And, he's advising Riker to kind of turn tail and attack the Shrike here. Yeah. Whereas Will Riker's like, no, we keep hiding in the nebula. We've done enough damage to the ship and the people aboard it. And we need to now keep them safe. Yeah. Is ultimately why he decides once the warp core has been fixed so that the Titan can go back to warp speed, they try to sneak out of the nebula and escape the Shrike. So I really liked how there's this constant battle of Picard saying, this is our only opportunity. We can only do it now. We need to make sure. It's almost like he's trying to relive the old days here. And then Will just saying, we've done enough damage here. We need to now make sure this crew is safe. And so is this ship. And so he's constantly going against, the advice of Picard here. And I was half expecting at some point for Picard to essentially pull rank here. I mean, I don't quite know what a retired admiral, whether you're able to do that. I doubt it, but I was half expecting him to say that. But in fact, it's kind of similar to what happened in the first episode with Shaw, where he's saying, I'm the captain of this ship. Yes, you can give me your information, but you're a retired admiral, you're a captain without a seat. It's my ship, my decisions, effectively. So now it's Will's ship and Will's decisions. But Picard does pull outranking officer on shore in episode 2, just very briefly, so I was half expecting to see that stunt again from Picard. What I like here is just how it builds through the episode, though. This disagreement in strategy and the argument, but ultimately to the point where they are about to leave. Warp capability is there. But just at that moment, circumstance with the explosion from the saboteur ensign, which disables the warp again, means, in a sense, Riker has no choice.
Yeah.
But so takes on board Picard's advice. But it's then just that doesn't go according to plan.
Absolutely.
At all.
Yeah.
I'll come to that in my big moment. And I love the fact that with then the ship totally disabled, being pulled in by the gravity well of this anomaly now, not a nebula, that Riker is really, really pissed here and just turns to Picard to say, remove yourself from the bridge. You've killed us all. And Picard turns and goes effectively. So it's just great seeing these two actors play off one another in terms of the good stuff, but also then when, they're given the scenes to effectively be at loggerheads with one another, disagree, argue, and you see it so good. They're you can just see how they pull from one another in this, and I just enjoyed it immensely.
Absolutely, I really like it, and Patrick Stewart really sells this idea of effectively Captain Picard and his number one. He's always given the orders and listened to Riker and the recommendations Riker gives. And now here he is as the number one for Captain Riker, giving him advice from all his vast experience. And Riker's saying, no, I have a different plan. And Picard's unable to give up on it. And Picard still is pushing his agenda, pushing his plan, and the plan fails. So maybe they could have gotten further away if they'd followed Riker one more time to run away. He's constantly chastising him, saying, your plan hasn't worked 3 times now. It's time to try out my plan, even though he's not in charge here. So I think he sells the frustration there really, really well.
Yeah, definitely. So that's my medium moment from the episode. Derek, what about yourself?
I have to talk about Beverly Crusher and Jean-Luc Picard, because we had lots of speculation last week. We had lots of speculation in feedback. We had lots of speculation on the podcast as to how it is that Beverly has become pregnant with Jean-Luc's child and why he doesn't know about it. So they lay it all out here in this conversation they have between the two of them. So effectively, it happened on shore leave a couple of months before Beverly left the Enterprise for the last time. Yeah, and then didn't stay in contact with any of the crew after that. And I really like the reason she gives for not contacting Picard is because the minute she found out she was pregnant, he was already being dragged off on another mission of galactic importance. And then she tried again, and there was another mission of galactic importance that he was under threat. And then there was another mission where he was kidnapped and under threat. And she realizes at that time, after all 3 of these happening in a row, that if he does have a son, his son would have a target on his back. He would have a Jean-Luc Picard-sized target on his back. So an interesting idea. But again, you get another great performance here from Patrick Stewart when he's explaining, this was the biggest decision in my life and you took it out of my hands. You never even told me that I had a child. Whether I have a decision or not in that is not up to you. It's up to me to at least know what was happening and know what had happened to my life. I think that's a great kind of capper on this.
Well, that's it. It's that you made the choice for me. And I like the whole side of it. You condemned me before the facts.
Yes.
In this, because of previous conversations that we had where he had opened up about the problems with his father and whether he would be a good father. And I love the kind of nostalgic look back to go, what might have been if you had told me.
Exactly.
I've come to realize in the intervening period that I would never have been my father.
Yeah. After season 2 of Picard, in case you didn't watch that.
You know, so it is one of those things where it's just really good. But
he could have come to that realization 20 years earlier is the point. He didn't have to go through the journey he went through.
So I think that it's like with Jonathan Frakes and Patrick Stewart and how they play off one another. I think Gates McFadden and Patrick Stewart here are just really good at selling this really kind of, in a sense, heartbreaking conversation. As Picard says, I didn't know I'd never see you again. Things just could have been different, and would have been if I had been told.
Exactly.
Even if the decision. I mean, there is a bit of, the final kind of sting, I think, here for Picard is when she says, well, I did tell him about you. I said to him where you would be, how you could find him, and he never did.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like, ooh, ouch.
Yes. Yeah. I do like that it's kind of, bookended, I suppose, with Jack standing outside, pacing back and forth, waiting for this conversation to happen and what the outcome's going to be. And as we already mentioned, Riker watching on, totally amused by the situation that's going on with his old friends that he spent such a long time on the Enterprise with. I thought that was a really good moment to have there in the background.
Yeah.
And of course, with the director, Jonathan Frakes there going, this would be really good to set up. Let me just get back into uniform, come out from behind the camera. I'll stand here and watch this kid pace.
Absolutely. I mean, as Jean-Luc comes out, you have Will Riker trying to get him to kind of just breathe, take that moment. And you have Jean-Luc saying, it's irreparable. I owe the ship's captain an apology. Because he's just, well, that's it. It's done here. And so, it is a big moment for Jean-Luc here. And I love how, as I was saying, from my point, it just bleeds into then just his actions and his behavior effectively with his friend and colleague, Will Riker. It really plays out sort of in a bad way for him.
Absolutely. Two final things I just want to mention about this point before we move on to our big moments from the episode. Jack definitely knows who Picard is, knows all about him. He calls out that, I heard he's positronic, meaning it's not really, it's not really my father. And he's corrected by Riker going, he's still the same man inside, which I thought that was quite interesting. And secondly, Jack's accent being explained away quite oddly. It
makes sense.
Does it? He went to college went to college in London, went to school in London and never shook the accent.
Yeah.
It's possible, I guess.
I think, look, I've been in Ireland since 2002, lived here, settled here.
Yeah.
I for some reason I just don't pick up the accent. I don't know what that is.
It's me talking Irish in your ears all the time. You're like, oh, don't want that accent.
No, I just don't. I have no idea why. I find it really weird.
It is a weird accent.
When I possibly get drunk, I will. I mean, I have phrases. I have Irish phrases and mannerisms in that sense.
Sure, grand.
But no, exactly. But I just don't have the accent, and I'm always like, it's so weird to me that I don't. But some people do. I mean, some people can pick up an accent every 5 minutes if they're with someone for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Whereas, it's just not the same.
You can still hear the Northern English in the background of your voice. Kind of a little Liverpool here, a little Manchester there. You can hear it all in there. Yeah.
So it's not inconceivable that would happen. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. And I suppose if he's only 20 and he went to school in London, then it may only be a few years since he had that accent. So I get it.
Exactly. The other side of it as well on this conversation between Beverly and Picard is we do, we have a bit more explanation, which becomes more apparent as the changelings come into this, where Picard's saying, well, you said trust no one. And you hear Beverly say, well, it was the Fenris Rangers, then the Klingons, and then Starfleet that came after us. We don't know why that is. But for Beverly, it's, for some reason, somehow has something to do with Jean-Luc. And it whether she believes that, I don't know. Whether it is, I don't know.
It's just a Picard-size antagonist is coming for her.
Exactly. Yes. And it's supporting her previous, their discussion about why she didn't tell him.
Exactly.
Say, I didn't so I could protect Jack from being embroiled in everything that surrounds you, which is bad and would put a target on his back. So I kind of think, but it's interesting when she recounts, as Jack did, about the different species that are coming after them.
Exactly. No rhyme or reason as to why either. So I think we have a rhyme and a reason. Let's get on to our major moments, John, I think.
Yes.
We must face the ramifications of the Prime Directive.
So about you, John, do you want to kick us off with your major moment from the episode, your Prime Directive?
Yeah, my big moment is Captain Vadic plays Portal, effectively, the game Portal with the Titan here.
Yes, he does.
Just referencing Valve's the game Portal. Awesome. So I really enjoyed this. These moments where it's like she's playing with the Titan.
Absolutely.
And it's even to the whole thing with the Shrike. As I really like the idea of that. And right at the start, you see Titan chasing into the nebula after the Titan. And I love how Vadic's, that precision of her attack instructions and how they're, being so strategic and just firing off a few laser beams, torpedoes at the Titan. Riker, Picard, sure, they have no idea, that they don't understand how, with all the sensor disruption, she's able to still be tracking them through this nebula. So I loved how it just plays to how she described her ship in sort of loving, glowing terms in the previous episodes. And you then see, that first escape that the Titan makes from the nebula, almost gets there, and effectively she puts it into a feedback loop with this portal technology, which was just really, really good. So it ends up effectively where it started from, with the Shrike there, and I think just the end moment after Riker is effectively left with no alternative but to take on Picard's advice to inflict an attack because there's a window of opportunity to fight, that she just turns that around, where they think that they're creeping up on her to fire effectively all they've got at the engines. She opens a portal so that their own torpedoes do exactly that damage to the Titan, disabling it, leaving it rudderless in space as it just gets pulled by the gravity well of this anomaly. I think, what's interesting here, though, is that once that's done, the Shrike turns away and leaves.
Well, yeah. And
that's kind of really interesting, because the previous episodes you have Will and Picard with Jack saying they're not going to destroy the ship because they want you.
Yeah.
They're after you. And then Jack's still on the ship. It's effectively being pulled to its destruction. As Riker says to Picard, you've killed us all.
Maybe.
And they've gone off. So the question here is, well, is it actually Jack? Because with everything else happening and being exposed around the changelings, is it more to do with having to get someone like Jean-Luc Picard off the chessboard
Maybe.
Of whatever is being conspired up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, maybe they wanted Jack to tempt Picard to come and save him effectively. So maybe it was something like that, and now they have another option. But what is really interesting about this gravity well situation and the readings from the anomaly, remember earlier on, as I mentioned, possible electrical and biological readings are coming out of this. So that also could be very connected to the changelings as well, because they were connected to the founders who were inside the wormhole in DS9. So, so potentially the biological readings that they're reading could be the changelings. I wonder.
Oh yeah, that's really, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about the founders and their connection with the changeling from Deep Space Nine. And I mean, I'm just trying to recall now. But Wesley Crusher isn't a founder, is he?
No.
So it's not like they'll suddenly find Wesley in there. He was like a watcher.
He was a traveller.
A traveller.
Yes.
That was it.
Yeah. I remember we did see him in season 2.
No, exactly. But it would be nice to see Wesley again.
It would. That is a moment as well with the argument between Beverly and Picard, where she does mention she lost her parents, she lost her husband Jack, and she lost Wesley, all to the stars that Picard worships. I love that line from her. So another justification why she wouldn't put Jack Jr., let's say, in that position.
It's really good, but that's what I loved about this. Again, you get it in snippets through this episode. First with the chase by the Shrike. Then that first attempt to escape the Shrike, and then finally where that opportunity for the Titan is completely turned on its head by Captain Vadic.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
Also love Jean-Luc effectively has been scared by Vadic's message that we heard earlier on in the season, where she described the Shrike as being as picking at him like a bird of prey does, and she's going to pick at us over and over again until we surrender. That is what she's going to do. So we need to attack right now. You know, so that is another part of his aggression or his aggressive tactic here. So really like that. Good stuff.
Definitely.
Good stuff.
Derek, what's your big moment?
We have mentioned it throughout the episode, but we have the big reveal of the major enemies for the season, the changelings. What I love about this is it's effectively, we're going to be covering another show that's going to be doing this later on this year, Secret Invasion from Marvel. These are a group of people who can impersonate anybody at all. Don't trust anyone, as we heard from Beverly Crusher at the beginning of the season. But for some reason, it hadn't crossed my mind that that's who they could be bringing back, because they were the major antagonists in DS9. They went through most of the last few seasons with the Dominion War, which is a massive war with the changelings as the leaders. And it was kind of resolved at the end of the season, in a way, at least. They had arrested the leader of the changelings. All the rest of them had effectively put away the weapons and gone away to the Gamma Quadrant. So you kind of thought that was the end of the changelings. They haven't been used since in any other show, interestingly. No. So it's great to have these antagonists back. And again, they could be anybody, as called out by Beverly. They took the form of Klingons. They took the form of Starfleet. So there's somebody there. We see in this episode, one of the ensigns on board the Titan is a changeling. He's there and he's doing their bidding effectively from inside.
He's the one that looked very suspicious that I saw on Titan.
That's right.
Episode 2.
Yeah.
So I knew it was something about him. I wasn't expecting it to be a changeling.
Exactly.
But I really liked how you just get that moment as 7 of 9 and Jack are sort of working through investigating his hunch as to why the Shrike can and is tracking them. I love that, it's the blood in the water.
Yeah.
And I love here having the ensign just for that brief moment where his face goes all sort of blobby.
Yes.
It is the attack of the blob, or the revenge of the blob.
Kind of.
I guess.
Yeah, kind of.
Here.
I'd say body snatchers would be kind of more appropriate here, because they're taking on the face of their enemy, hiding as sleeper agents until they need to do something effectively that furthers the purpose of these changelings, which I think is cool.
No, that's true. Yeah.
On the other side of it, then the kind of more deeper explanation that we get in the episode is between Worf and Raffi, who are now working together. She now knows he's her handler, and it kind of lays out who the changelings are and what their purpose was in the past. The fact that there was a war that happened, decades beforehand, and they haven't been seen since,
Absolutely. I must say, I really loved the other changeling being interrogated.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know the actor. I didn't catch it in my notes, but the guy playing Titus Ricker, just the venomous hate.
Yeah.
And belief. It was really, really well played, as Worf is playing good cop to Raffi's bad cop in this interrogation. I really liked how Raffi is seeing his discomfort from being away from the Great Link.
Which she thinks
being withdrawal symptoms from taking drugs.
Yeah.
Like she's had. That's what she's recognizing, but it goes beyond that in a sense, and that's when Worf recognizes it's the changelings.
Yeah.
So I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But even liquefied, then he was trying to make his escape.
Well, exactly. And I suppose that's the interesting thing. The changelings themselves have to return to this thing called the Great Link to kind of refresh their powers and their abilities to come back out again. So if they stay away too long, this is what happens to them. The connection gets broken. They can't keep their form for that long. So it seems like he's been away for a long time without the ability to change out of this. So it's a really interesting way to tie in Raffi's story, because we learn that Titus was the one that paid off the Ferengi Sneed last week. He's the one that paid him off to tell this story to Raffi to close down the investigation that was going on. So already in episode 3, everything is now connected to the changelings. Vadic is following the ship because she's connected to the changeling on board who's venting the gas. So is Vadic a changeling?
I think so, because Beverly, while she doesn't know it, I think her just outlining that all these different species have come after them, and including Starfleet.
Yeah.
Then it's, she's got the right conclusion in terms of trust no one.
Yeah.
But not through the right way,
Yeah. Or
she's a changeling.
Exactly. The other question they have out there, as all of these characters and cast members reunite here, we've heard stories of most of the other cast members. Like, for example, Geordi LaForge's daughter is here aboard the Titan. So if Geordi comes back, there's a connection there with him. Worf's kind of come out of nowhere with Raffi. And Beverly Crusher hasn't been in contact with anybody at all for the last 20 years. Potentially, are Beverly and Jack, are they changelings?
That is
Are they trying to get in there with Riker and with Picard? So, are the changelings using the two of them to get closer to Picard?
Yep, and she's the one that sent out the distress to the old, almost redundant communicator.
Yeah.
Possibly because she doesn't know how to contact him through his new phone, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
So
it has been 20 years since that. But so all of it's justifiable. What I love about these types of stories, and again, I'm sure we're going to see this when we get to Secret Invasion in the MCU later on this year. What I love about these stories is it is trust no one. If you haven't seen someone for a couple of hours, like the excellent The Thing movie back in the 80s, if you haven't seen someone for a couple of hours, it's entirely possible they've been replaced. So this throws it open for everybody. Why is Picard himself, why is he so much more aggressive than we've seen him in the past? Has Picard been replaced by a changeling since we saw him in a scene? Is Riker, has he been replaced? Is that the reason why Deanna's not with him, for example? There's loads of possibilities that the changelings could have replaced somebody really significant in the show already. So that's what makes this a really exciting reveal. So I was jumping up and down in my chair going, oh my God, they've brought back the awesome changelings and a brand new role for this show. That's really cool.
Definitely.
Not like in a Tom Cruise way. I kind of mean just slightly bouncing excitedly, not like jumping up and down on the chair.
It was awesome, actually.
Yeah.
The other thing as well in that interrogation is we do learn that something else was stolen from Daystrom Institute.
Yes,
that
we
it
do.
was that misdirection by the changelings.
Yes.
To take the portal technology and have the focus on that. So again, that's really intriguing.
Absolutely. And the fact that they're using it on the Titan with Picard on board, is that also part of the distraction, them using this weapon? So the other thing they've stolen from Daystrom Institute and keeping Picard distracted, what is it that they've stolen from Daystrom Institute that is that much more important?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see. We've been to Daystrom before. We know what they're well known for. So let us see what that could connect to.
But great stuff.
Yeah,
loved it. Yeah.
Very cool.
So Derek, any other points or notes?
I've just got one, and it's funny that you mentioned about Titus Ricca and the actor that played him.
Yeah.
That actor is as Thomas Dekker, and the reason why it's interesting is because he has been in Star Trek before. He was in Star Trek Generations.
Excellent.
Playing Picard's son, Thomas.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you know the scene in the Nexus when he sees what his family life would have been like. That's the actor that played his son in there, and he's come back as a changeling in the show here. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I like that. How about yourself, John? Anything else to add about the episode?
No, nothing from my side. Which I think just leads us into our overall thoughts about this episode of Star Trek Picard. 17 seconds. Derek, what did you think?
Oh, I loved this, and probably mostly because of the reveal, because there's lots of good stuff going on with the characters here, but this reveal changelings everything. I love it. Sorry. That was my attempt at a joke there.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, John. We've obviously spent too much time together. No, I just love this reveal because, as I say, it does mean a big question now hangs over everything that's happening and everything that we've seen so far.
Oh, yeah.
We followed two different storylines. They've been combined together. We've now see the changelings are connected to the big battle that's going on externally, and now could be side by side with any of our characters across wherever they take us in the storyline.
Yeah,
so
always good
love
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
Love it. How about yourself, John? What did you think of the episode?
Yeah, absolutely loved this. I'd give this 4.5 freaking freaks out of 5.
Nice.
I just absolutely enjoyed it from start to finish. I really enjoyed the whole squirreliness of the Titan and the Shrike in the nebula. I just loved Picard's scenes in this with Beverly, with Riker. They were just they felt epic, meaningful, emotional, deep. A schism almost occurring in the relationships of these really important people in his life. I loved just then, as you say, the changelings coming back. I mean, it just took me right back to Deep Space Nine. Gotta watch that again now after seeing these, because they're a great foe to have on board. As you say, just, well, who isn't a changeling?
I just love to watch it again. Yeah.
What are they doing as well? It is revenge, but how is it going to happen? So,
and this is a separatist group as well. This isn't the actual
no, exactly. It's a
faction. Well. So
faction.
it's a faction. So that's also interesting.
So it's all just really, really good. So for me, 4.5 freaking freaks out of 5.
Love it. Shall we go to 10 forward and have a quick drink, John?
I think we need one. Yes, fellow quizzers, fellow Trekkies, welcome to the 10 Forward pub quiz. It's episode 3, so of course it is question 3.
Funny how that works.
Yes. What beverage does Worf, son of Mogh, House of Martok, son of Sergey, House of Rozhenko, Bane of the Duras family, Slayer of Gowron, offer to Raffina?
Nice, John. Very good.
Don't ask me to repeat it like we normally do.
I'll ask you to repeat the shortened version of that, because there's a very short version of that question.
Yes. The shortened or the abridged version of the question, fellow Trekkies and quizzers. What beverage does Worf offer to Raffina? aka Raffi.
That was the even shorter version of it.
Yes.
Good stuff. We did get a quick comment on Twitter from Matt Murdoch, who provided that great musical feedback last week,
Yes.
who just said Worf is giving the Mother of Dragons a run for her money with the number of names now after his name. Good stuff. So that is the third question in our 10 Forward pub quiz. There will be, of course, 10 questions because there's 10 episodes of the season. So at the end of the season, pop in your answer to all of those questions to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, and we'll have some Star Trek Picard goodies up for grabs.
Yes,
for the final time.
Absolutely. Good luck, fellow quizzers, fellow Trekkies. But let us get into our feedback section with some feedback, thoughts, theories, observations from our fellow Trekkies. If you want to send in your thoughts, send them in to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can join us over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. If you want to hear your voice on the podcast, you can, of course, record a clip of yourself on your phone and email it into us, or you can go to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com and record up to 90 seconds of your thoughts about the week's episode. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to hear somebody test out the new recording functionality on the website. So go to tvpodcastindustries.com, hit the little microphone button at the bottom, and you'll be able to get that.
Yes. Testing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
There you go. Exactly. That is exactly what we want. Although we'd like some actual thoughts about the episodes.
Yes, of course. We could do it ourselves.
We could. I'd like to hear from one of our wonderful fellow listeners, or many of our wonderful listeners.
Yes, me too. For sure. But first up, we have some Facebook feedback. Up first is Joe Herbst, who has some corrections for Derek from last week's podcast.
Yeah.
You've been corrected again.
I know.
Oh my goodness. That's why I try not to go too deep into the lore, because I do know that my memories of Star Trek is probably way too sketchy at this stage. But Joe Herb says, I'm still not loving this season, but rather than complain, I'll just note that when you all refer to the movie Star Trek Insurrection, I think you mean Star Trek Nemesis. Yes, Joe, that is correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, I would say that's probably not even Star Trek lore. It's just I can't now remember movie titles.
There was a lot of the movies.
There were.
And by the end there, it was difficult to pick out exactly what the names were. So you're totally right, though. Of course, it is Nemesis, yeah.
Yes. Joe goes on to say, I also think Derek said that Beverly was gone for 2 seasons of The Next Generation, but she was only gone for 1. In the second season, Dr. Catherine Pulaski takes her place. She was played by Deanna Muldaur, who was in the original series episode, as well as the show LA Law, which traded several cast members with The Next Generation, including John Delancey, who plays Q.
Very good.
Excellent stuff.
Yeah.
Good bit of trivia there, Joe.
I don't know why I said 2 seasons. I knew she wasn't gone for 2 full seasons. I think because the show ran 22 to 25 episodes in a season. I think maybe in my brain I knew she was gone for a really long time, especially because shows are only 10 episodes now. In my head, I was like, she was gone, must have been gone for 2 years.
Well, that's it. You think about how many shows there were in a season. It was great.
It was, yeah. Get to know people very well when you have 25 episodes to spend with
Definitely.
them. Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. Heather Wallace also shares some thoughts on last week's episode. She says, help me out. Is it respectful or disrespectful to your late husband's memory to give his first name and surname to the kid you've secretly had with your best friend? I can't decide. I also don't think it's ethical to put 500 lives at risk for your son, Jean-Luc. I feel like you and Beverly need to do an ethics refresher at the Academy. I love Todd Stashwick in the show as Captain Shaw. He seems like the only rational person being swept along with the tide of events. I enjoyed him reading out Jack Crusher's aliases, one of which was James Cole, the hero of 12 Monkeys. I'm sure it's just a nice nod to Todd Stashwick and Terry Matalas' other work together, since they've already done time travel on the show. Very good. Yes, of course. I don't think that Jack Crusher is actually the time traveler James Cole from 12 Monkeys, but definitely that's a nod.
I would say so.
Yeah.
And really good as well. And yes, I think you're right. I think there is an ethical refresher course required, but I think Picard does get an ethical slapdown off Riker in this episode.
He certainly does.
You've just killed us all. Get yourself off the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Too much going on in his head, and I guess Beverly, maybe it's not Beverly.
Well, exactly. Maybe.
Well, I hadn't actually thought of that until you said it. But
Don't blame me if I'm wrong.
I'm going to,
I'm
like Joe. But I'm going to maybe run with that for a while, see, but I don't think so. Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Heather. Jamie Lawton says, when the Titan scans the Shrike, the Bajoran Starfleet officer mentions that the Shrike, among its huge arsenal of weaponry, has isolytic weapons, which was last seen in Star Trek Insurrection on the sonar ships. In that film, the effect of the nebula, the Briar Patch, had the effect of causing the inhabitants of the planet to regenerate. There was a scene where Picard was very flirty with Dr. Crusher. Could this be where Jack was conceived? Interesting. Also, you see the Shrike from the perspective from the Titan over its saucer, where you see its registration number followed by an A. Amanda Plummer's dad is Christopher Plummer, who played General Chang in Undiscovered Country. Excellent stuff there, Jamie. Yes, that is correct. Christopher Plummer is an alumni of the Star Trek universe.
He certainly was, and one of the best.
Yeah,
Undiscovered Country. Absolutely love that movie. Love his "Let's slip the dogs of war" line, delivered so well and so impactful in that movie.
Really
so,
good.
I completely forgot that Amanda Plummer's his daughter, though.
That's true. Yeah. I am really hoping as well. Given that we do see the Shrike sort of turn around and leave, I really hope Amanda Plummer is back still and in this season as Captain Vadic, because I just loved her kind of playfulness.
Absolutely.
I just thought she embodied the name of the ship as well as how she captains it. It was really cool.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Another connection there as well with Insurrection, and that is reasonably close to when Picard and Crusher got amorous as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that was the last movie mission that we saw, and she's saying that the last time that she was aboard, a couple of months before the last time she was aboard the Enterprise, is when they went off on shore leave. So, but interestingly, I suppose the other Easter egg from the episode is that the planet she mentions that they go on shore leave to is actually the planet that Worf and his wife Jadzia Dax were supposed to be having their honeymoon on.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little connection there. Lots of obscure planets, mostly from DS9, were mentioned from Beverly Crusher. So
yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie. And on this episode, on episode 3 of Picard, Victor Von Doom says, another fantastic episode. I love the multiple moving parts, even the dramatic scenes and the oh by the way form of tying up loose ends and unanswered questions such as Jack's accent. What about Picard's accent? Did he study in England before Starfleet? The verbal sparring between Worf and Raffi was nice comic relief while investigating the case. I guess Odo could not sway the entire changeling race to peace. Could Captain Sisko return from the Prophet Ether to intervene? Not likely, just a wild thought. The portal weapon is quite the defensive and offensive weapon. Vadic using it to have Titan shoot itself in the rear was chilling. Riker should have reinstated Seven upon taking command. I look forward to exploring the gravity well. Could Vadic be a changeling? Fine direction by Frakes as usual.
Absolutely, Victor. Completely agree. I think Jonathan Frakes is just awesome.
Such a good job.
As a director. Really enjoyed his direction on multiple episodes now in the Star Trek universe. So really enjoyed that. You're absolutely right here. I think this is just a fantastic episode with all the different elements to it. A bit of a cat and mouse hide and seek strategy going on, the dramatic scenes of evolving on the Titan, as well as then this overarching sort of nemesis being revealed here in the changelings. And again, I think Raffi and Worf were just really good together.
They were
in this. Yeah,
it was really, really good. Thanks so much, Victor. Not everybody feels the same. Michael Carrier sent in his feedback. He says, I love the Star Trek franchise and will always be supportive, but to this point, I'm not impressed with what I'm seeing on season 3 of Picard. It's not bad TV. It's just not interesting TV. Watching Patrick Stewart right now is bringing up images of what it must have been like to watch Willie Mays or Babe Ruth at the end of their baseball careers, or even like watching Bret the Hitman Hart trying to perform inside a wrestling ring today. It's a shame you're not liking it, Michael. I'm really enjoying these scenes with Patrick Stewart. We mentioned them earlier on as some of our major points from the episode. I think he's really still got that.
Yeah, me too.
It's a different gravitas than, of course, he had back in the 80s. It's certainly different, but he's such an accomplished actor and has done so much over the years that any opportunity to see him on screen, sparring with his old Enterprise castmates, I think has been really, really enjoyable this season, particularly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but thanks so much, Michael, for your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Heather Wallace says on this episode 3, I'm guessing the Rebel changelings are all early 2000 goth punk fans. There was some serious Gerard Way and Billy Joe Armstrong eyeliner action. It was a really good moment when Worf asked, how long have you been away from the Great Link? Mm-hmm. And I loved the reference to Odo. I don't think that's Will on the bridge. I think a changeling is impersonating him. If so, I hope it's only been this episode and not the whole time. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if it is just from that moment where they met up in the bar and he says that Deanna and his daughter are happy to not be around him at the moment, because we did question why that was, that he hasn't talked about an argument since then or anything like that. So that's why you'd wonder, is he a changeling? But very interesting. Maybe actually you're onto something, Heather. Maybe Gerard Way and Billy Joe Armstrong are changelings and they had just been away from the Great Link for too long, and that's why they had the eyeliner in the
Yeah, and I mean, actually, Heather, you've sort of welled everything up as to why, I both love these types of antagonists that can change form, and also then it drives me crazy because I'm like going, you have a point with Will Riker, but I really don't want him to be a changeling at this moment. I want, the argument to be happening for genuine reasons. I agree. To be honest, but you just never know.
Exactly.
You never know in these instances.
Trust no one.
Exactly. Yeah. But great stuff. Thanks, Heather, and thank you to all our fellow Trekkies who sent in their thoughts and feedback for this episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make sure you keep sending it in. We're going to be recording from now on Fridays and Saturdays, depending on the availability of the episodes and our time, of course. So once you've watched the episodes, share your thoughts about each of the episodes of Star Trek Picard.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us, fellow Trekkies. Remember to stay subscribed to the podcast over at TV Podcast Industries, where you can join us on any Federation or Changeling podcast catcher of your choice. You can also support us over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries for any monthly amount, or you can provide support on a one-off basis through buymeacoffee.com/TVPI. But of course, you can support us by sharing the podcast around, rating, leaving a review, because sharing the podcast with your friends is, of course,
sharing the love.
Sharing the love.
Yes, it is.
Any way you wish to support us is fantastic, including feedback that we're really enjoying as well.
Absolutely.
On this third season of Picard.
Yeah, that's it, John. 751st episode in the bag. As I said, didn't make a big deal about the 750th. I should get some cool celebration music or some champagne popping corks kind of noises.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we should actually get some champagne though.
Well, when it's 10 years and probably at that stage 850, given the rate given the rate that they're being put out, we have to do an actual in-person pub quiz somewhere at a fan event.
Well,
somewhere.
we did it for our 500th episode. We did our awesome Zoom pub quiz. We can hopefully get together another one of those for our 1,000th
No, we
episode.
need in person. We need to get everyone over to Dublin where we can drink in a pub whilst trying to remember intricate fan details.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah. They're paying their own flights though.
You're not going to get any argument from me on that point.
Love it.
However much we'd love to pay for flights for everyone to come over, alas,
that's not happening.
no. But we will be back next week with Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 4, No Win Scenario. And, of course, we are covering at the moment The Last of Us over on TV Podcast Industries.
Two more episodes to go.
As well as another intergalactic show in Star Wars, The Bad Batch.
Yeah, it's been great fun. As it closes out the season, it's been really good to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
Vying for Star Wars position with The Mandalorian, which just came out this week as well. So I feel like they're really airing on their bigger episodes, as they're coming out at exactly the same time as The Mandalorian each week now. But good stuff. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time.
Yeah, thank you so much, fellow Trekkies, for joining us. It is, as always, a pleasure chatting all things Picard with you. But of course, in the meantime, and until next week, keep watching, keep listening, and keep trekking. Bye.
Bye.